So we are going to talk about something that radically changes how we manage the data. We are going to talk about zero-copy file federation, which is going beta next week. So I will start with the high-level overview of data cloud integration patterns, zero-copy, and then Vijay will do double-click on the file federation that is being released next week. So first of all, thank you. Thank you for joining us. And our forward-looking statements. I'm Vandana Nayak. I help our customers with their data, AI, architecture, and strategy. And I'm joined by...
Hi, I'm Vijay Gopalakrishnan. I'm on the product team for Data Cloud. I work on zero-copy data federation, which includes query federation that we currently have, and then we'll talk about file federation that's coming soon.
Awesome. Thank you. So let's frame the problem. We all have seen where we have a lot of data, and when we talk to our customers, the number one question is around how do you get more value from your data? The data could be sitting in your data lakes, data warehouses, on-prem systems, legacy systems, SaaS solutions. It could be sitting in multiple places, especially when we talk to auto customers. They have a lot of data, transactional data, sitting in Snowflake or Databricks. Or we have retailers. Their transactional data is also sitting in one of these data lakes. And there is more real-time IoT data as well that is many times being sent into data lakes. How do you really bring it all together? How do you get more value out of it? And how do you make sure that you access that data without replicating that data or being in the business of constantly ETLing the data, duplicating the data, copying it over, which adds additional latency there. So before we jump into zero-copy, Data Cloud is built on the principle of being open and extensible. That's why we provide several flexible options from a data integration perspective. First one is around batch. This is ideal if you need to replicate some data into Data Cloud. This is ideal for customer profile data, which you do want to copy in Data Cloud. So scenarios like that, batch is ideal. And then you have streaming data, which is more of the streaming, real-time, event-based architecture. Ideal when you are looking at more of doing some kind of an event-based processing, event-based messaging, event-based personalization. Ideal to use streaming APIs for that streaming pattern. And then we also have sub-second real-time. This is under 200 milliseconds. Perfect. It's being used by several of our customers, especially customers like retailers. As a customer, I could be looking at the website, looking at a certain item. Then in real time, you want to capture that information about the customer, resolve the identity, because not every time the customer has logged into your website, resolve the identity in real time, gain insights about the customer, and then provide surface in like offers or promotions. All happens in less than 200 milliseconds. Great pattern for those kind of use cases, and also for identifying risk in real time or fraudulent transactions in real time. That's where sub-second real time comes in. And the last one we have here, which is the important one we are going to double click on, is zero copy. We all have the data that is sitting in data lakes. We don't want to copy it over into Data Cloud. And with the Data Cloud, we are not in the business of just bring the data all into Data Cloud. Let's copy all the data into Data Cloud. That's not what we are after. What we are after is how can you gain maximum value from your data that is already being processed, already being loaded into one of these data lakes. That's where zero copy comes in, where you are bidirectionally able to access that data from your data lake in Data Cloud, use it for processing, or even the other way, access the data from Data Cloud into your data lakes for reporting analytical purposes as well. And here we support two patterns. One is query-based, where the query, which is JDBC-based, query is executed on the data lake side, and data is made available in Data Cloud. Then you have file federation, which is more at accessing the data at file level, which is the more efficient because you are directly going to the storage level to the file. That's what Vijay will double click on. And then zero copy, as I mentioned, it supports how you work with the data lakes. Bring in your external data and also virtualize it, act on that data, access that data, process that data, all without copying the data into Data Cloud, and share the data back into external data sources. So What are some of the advantages with zero copy, right? You don't have to do costly data transfers, very cost efficient. It accelerates the value. And also, when you're replicating the data, you need to make sure the data is in sync. This avoids the need for that. And you are accessing the data in real time. Whatever your latency is, as well as your latency for data lake. If you are loading the data into data lake, say, every 15 minutes, it's available every 15 minutes in data cloud. Again, this architecture is not perfect for all scenarios. It all goes back to your use cases. What are you trying to achieve? We were recently working with the entertainment company, and they had all their data sitting in Snowflake. However, they wanted to act on that data in real time, where as those transactions are happening, as those events are happening, in real time, they wanted to trigger actions on that. In that scenario, they did not go with zero-copy architecture, because zero-copy, that would add additional latency, because data has to be loaded into data lakes and then accessed. In those scenarios, we went with the direct of the event-based architecture. So again, it all comes down to what are you trying to achieve, what is your use case, what latency do you need, and what are you trying to do, right? And also, a lot of our finance customers, they have a lot of regulations around where the data gets copied, where it gets stored. Zero copy is ideal scenario for that, because you're not replicating any of that data. That way you can be compliant, because we are just accessing that data without storing. And also all the security, now it's all within the Salesforce trust boundary. And from a zero copy topology perspective, what do we have? The data sources, different data sources. You have data lakes, data warehouses, modern apps, legacy systems, custom systems. The thing to keep in mind here is zero copy is only supported with the data lakes. We don't support zero copy with your on-prem systems or legacy systems. It's only supported with data lakes. And again, we support bidirectional zero copy. And from a data federation perspective, this is where you are accessing the data from your data lake into data cloud. We have query federation and file federation there. And from a data sharing perspective, it's more of sharing the data from data cloud into external data lakes. And all this is through zero-copy architecture. These are all the different terms you'll hear when we talk about zero-copy, or when you hear zero-copy from data cloud perspective. With that, I'll turn it over to Vijay.
Thank you, Vandana. Thanks. And Vandana spoke about all the values that you can get using zero copy. Before I begin, how many of you are familiar with zero copy or have used zero copy before? Great. Okay. We'll do a couple of things. I want to start off by talking a bit about the architecture, and then we'll do a deep dive into the architecture on how this fundamentally works with Data Cloud. But before that, as Vandana mentioned, we currently have the ability to use zero copy bidirectionally. And so data federation here is data in, and data sharing is when you want to access the data that's in Data Cloud via zero copy pattern from an external source. Today we offer query federation with data federation. Excuse me. And we will be launching the beta for file federation on 10th of March. We'll talk about that in a second. And with data sharing, we have now standardized on file federation. That's the path that we're taking. So, sorry. Let's do a deep dive into this. Vandana, is it this one? This one?
Yeah.
Let's do a deep dive into this on how this works, right? So, if you look on the top, the orange cloud is the data cloud structure. Right on the left, the green structure is the customer managed data warehouse, data lake. And on the right, the blue cloud is your Salesforce managed data lake. So let's look at this from a couple of perspectives. Today, if you were to ingest data into data lake, it would reside in the Salesforce managed lakehouse storage. And the way it would work is, let's say if you're running a segmentation and you want to look at all the customers who bought a leather jacket, who are in North America, have bought a leather jacket over the last 60 days. This translates into a query. you have a couple of filters. We have a regional filter, we added a date filter, and a product filter. It would hit the local storage, retrieve the data, right? Now, the important piece there, which differentiates, is the data lake object. I'll try to figure out. OK, I'm not going to use the clicker. I'm not familiar with this. But if you look at the gray cylinder there, that's the data lake object. In the native storage, the data lake object holds both the metadata and the data. So as you ingest it, it's going to hold both any data that you're bringing in and the associated metadata. The difference with zero copy is, now let's move to the left side, is you will see that orange box is external data lake object. When we use zero copy, we create what's called an external data lake object, which is the conduit from the customer's data warehouse or data lake to data cloud, but we only store the metadata, not the data. So anytime you have one of these downstream processes like segmentation or calculated insights running, today with query federation, you would push that query down to the customer's compute layer. You would run the query, access the data, the pertinent subset of data that's relevant based off the filters. You would hydrate the external data lake object merely just for the data to pass, and then it would go to the service. So we do not store the data within Data Cloud. It merely passes via the external data lake object to the service. Now, post the service, let's say, in our case, when we're talking about segmentation, once the segmentation is completed, the results of the segmentation are stored, but not the actual data that's there. So the actual data still resides in the external source. It's only the resultant data from any of these processes that stays in Data Cloud. So what we have today, as I said, was query federation. With query federation, we utilized the customer's compute, right? So we offer it with Snowflake, Databricks, Redshift, and with BigQuery, where you can push this query emanating from any of the services to the compute, run the query, retrieve the data, and then bring it back to Data Cloud. What's new with file federation is we will no longer do this via the compute layer. We will directly access the customer's storage to access this data and bring it back. So as you can see, there is no, it's fully managed, meaning there is no customer's compute involved here. It's all running on Salesforce compute. The data is accessed from the storage, brought back into Data Cloud, and then utilized. So you can see the savings there. Also, you can see that it's much large. You can use this with much larger data sets. And if Data Cloud and the storage are co-located in the same region, you can see how it closely matches the native data Salesforce Lake Store, which means you'll get performances that are pretty close to the native data. Today, with the beta program, and we'll talk about that in a second, when we initially start this off with the beta program in March, it's actually March 10th to be specific, we will start off with supporting Snowflake and Databricks. We will also support generic sources, and what that means is if you have Iceberg tables, and if you have an Iceberg REST catalog along with your files in Parquet format, you can utilize this feature. It's almost like bring your own setup, right? With Snowflake and with Databricks, the difference you'll note is when you create a connection, we are working on credential vending with them, which basically means as long as you have the personal access token to the catalog and the endpoint, you don't have to provide the credentials for the storage. It's automatically vended in the backend. The generic connector essentially is to ensure that you have the ability to use file federation with sources of your choice until we start building more of these connectors where we work with these partners, build more. But until then, we want to make sure that you have the ability to connect to the sources of your choice as long as you have Iceberg tables, REST catalog, and the files are in Parquet format. We'll continue to work on this, more file formats, different catalogs, but this is where we are starting. All right, so the beta program for this starts on 10th of March. It's self-service, meaning if you're a current customer, you can go to your setup page. You should be able to enable it yourself. We will start off with Snowflake, Databricks, and I have AWS here because you can use the generic connector today to connect to AWS. We will have the prerequisites, as I mentioned, are having iceberg tables, REST catalogs, an iceberg REST catalog, sorry, and then the files being in Parquet format. I know I think we went through a little fast, but the last one, there's a lot of advantages you can get with zero copy. As Vandana mentioned, several pieces, right? So having the ability to use data from the external source without having to copy it into Data Cloud is something that we're seeing a lot of customers leverage, different use cases. So our ask is, try it out. Try out the open beta. I would love your feedback. Try it out. Tell us what you think. There is also some Trailhead material that, if you want to look at this, have a, try out and see how this works. That's great. And then please connect with your account team and, for pilot signups. And if you want to talk more, with the teams, with the product team, please do connect with your account teams. We'd be more than happy to chat with you. I think we did 4 minutes in there. Anything else you want to add, Vandana?
No, thank you. Yeah, go ahead and try. And there are so many use cases where our customers are using zero-copy architecture already. Some of you already raised your hand saying you are trying. Would love to hear your feedback on how it is going, what are you seeing, so we can incorporate that into the product as needed.
Absolutely.
And with that, Vijay and I'll be here for any follow-up questions as well.
Thank you all.
You.